again, if his hunch was right, the possibilities could indeed be endless. He switched over to Vice and prodded the dispense button. Nothing. The glass in his hand remained empty. Vice, he said under his breath, and pressed the button again. Still nothing. Hey, brah, Scott called out to him from the living room. I said get some beer, not make it. What's keeping you? Jeremy turned back to the refrigerator. Booze, he spoke aloud. Yeah, that too, brah. Scott had overheard him. His response had come so abruptly that Jeremy gave a start as he was halfway to pushing the dispense button. Jeremy collected himself and pushed the button. The sudden whoosh from the jets filling his cup caught him off guard. In his hand was a glass full of chilled, cleared liquid. More water. He smirked. He could kick himself for being so silly as to think that this was a wish-granting fridge. Jeremy took a swig and spat the whole mouthful in a spray across the kitchen. You all right, brah? Scott asked, though it was clear he couldn't care less. Jeremy set the glass on the countertop and rubbed his mouth clean with his forearm. He smacked his lips. Vodka. It was vodka in the glass. He'd known the taste ever since he was 8. At some family dinner where his uncle tricked him into drinking some by telling him it was mineral water. Jeremy almost retched up his meal back then, and now fought his gag reflex to keep history from repeating. His eyes widened. His hunch was right. This was a magic fridge. No, that couldn't be right. He shook his head to dispel these nonsensical thoughts. There had to be a rational explanation. He returned to the fridge and opened the door. It was no longer empty. Sitting on the middle shelf was a frosted bottle of vodka. His jaw dropped. Had it been there when he first opened the door? No. But then again, how could he have overlooked it? It was the only thing in the fridge. He grabbed the bottle by the neck and pulled it out to get a better look at it. There was only a tiny bit left in the bottle, not enough for a full glass, but, and he took a ragged breath when he realized this, there was perhaps enough for a mouthful, about as much as he'd drunk from the cup. He put the bottle back in the fridge and shut the door. Thoughts poured into his head, too fast for him to process all at once. Was he losing his mind? And while he categorically dismissed these thoughts as nonsense, part of him insisted that what he'd experienced was real. No matter how hard he tried, he could not silence that one voice that urged him to trust his senses. It demanded another experiment be carried out. He reopened the door and scanned the refrigerator interior from top to bottom. Contents: one nearly empty bottle of vodka. He double-checked to be sure, then shut the door. Now, with a fresh cup in hand, Jeremy placed it under the dispenser. Cash. What filled the cup was an opaque fluid that looked equal parts pond scum and green smoothie, complete with a froth on top. Cradling the glass in both hands, he held it up to his nose and sniffed. It smelled green, was the only way he could describe it, with notes of earthiness, sweat, and printer's ink. Pinching his nose shut with one hand, he raised the glass to his lips and drank. His stomach balled into a tight fist. Jeremy doubled over, his upper torso heaved in revulsion. Whatever was in the glass tasted exactly how dollar bills smelled. He flung himself against the sink, struck his mouth under the faucet, and ran the water to rinse out what remained of that horrible taste. What's wrong with you, brah? Jeremy tensed up at hearing Scott's voice so close by. He straightened and looked over his shoulder. Scott stood at the fridge with a meaty fist on the door handle, primed to yank it open. Don't! Jeremy would have said, but his stomach leapt into his throat, and he threw up a little into the sink. The door flew open, and the light from the fridge's inside set out Scott's alarmed expression in stark detail. Holy... he began in a breathless whisper. Scott drew up both hands and reached into the fridge with such care as only seen in doctors in an act of delivering babies. In his hands was a short stack of hundreds, bound up in a ribbon. He thumbed through the stack in disbelief.